What's going on, everyone? In today's episode, I'm going to show you two things you can do to double the size of your onions. Let's go. So regardless of what type of onion you're growing, this video is hopefully going to help you double that size because it's really easy to grow onions. It's really difficult to grow large onions, but we manage to do it every single year. And a lot of you chime in the comments and say, Luke, please tell me your secret. Now, we have got tons of videos on how to grow onions, from full growing guides to some other tips and tricks you can apply. This is just gonna be another one of those videos because a lot of you have asked questions over the years, and those questions have prompted these videos. And so, like I said, it doesn't matter what type of onion you're growing. It doesn't have to be a giant onion to double the size, right? You could be growing a small little white Spanish onion or like a pearl onion and still get a twice large enough onion, because the thing is that when you're doing the wrong things, onions are very easy to grow still. Onions are basically the easiest crop in the garden to grow because they're really nearly impossible to kill. But the thing is getting them to grow large, that's where it gets kind of tricky. And so we're gonna share with you some of the tips and tricks I've learned over the years, specifically these two, because so many people don't do these two, and it results in smaller onions by not doing them. Onions are what's known as an allium, and all alliums are a biennial. And that means they grow the first year, flower the second year. And it's really important that you start from seed. Now, starting from seed is going to give you a larger onion because the onion is going to be focused more on growing than flowering. You see, onion sets, those little dormant bulbs that you plant in the ground, those have already been grown. And so the reason why we never carry them, why we always recommend starting from onion seed, is because it's going to result in a larger onion right off the bat. Those that are growing onion sets are going to find it to be a little more convenient, but the downside is that because those onions were already grown in a previous season, put through cold storage, and then you're throwing them in your garden, the fact that they're a biennial doesn't change. It doesn't matter if they were only grown for a week or 2 weeks or a whole season and then put in cold storage. The onion has basically that temperature setting that says, all right, we're getting cold, we're going through winter, we're gonna come out of dormancy in the spring. It doesn't matter how long it's been growing. And that's kind of a fun fact about onions. And so when they've been put into storage and then are regrown in your garden as sets, they're naturally going to flower or focus more of that energy on flowering. And so you're gonna end up with a smaller onion because about 50 to 75% of the energy from that onion is going to go into flowering rather than forming a larger bulb. So that wasn't the actual tip I was even gonna give you. That was just a bonus tip. So make sure you hit the like button for a bonus tip, because now this tip is the first thing that most gardeners don't do, and you could get larger onions from doing it, and that's pruning your onions. Now, onions form leaves. These are actually the leaves, believe it or not. It's known as a modified leaf. It's not actually like a leaf, like in the case of this kohlrabi here. This is a modified leaf, and it actually is going to still photosynthesize and create energy for the plant. But these leaves also correspond to rings on an onion. And the more leaves you have, the more rings you have. The more rings you have, the larger the onion is. And so if you can encourage that plant to produce more foliage, more leaves, you're going to naturally get, by default, a larger onion. You don't have to focus on something like phosphorus. A lot of people want to pump their soil full of phosphorus because they think that their onion is a root crop, and root development corresponds to phosphorus. Couldn't be further from the truth. You actually have to treat your onion like a leafy crop. Leafy greens are what you're growing. The more leaves you have, the bigger the onion is. And so oftentimes onion leaves, like look at how long this onion leaf is. It's absolutely gigantic. When it gets so long like that, the common thought process is, well, okay, so if that's true, if the more leaves an onion has, the more energy it can create through photosynthesis, so therefore I should just leave these onion leaves intact and not prune them. The downside is that the onion plant is not encouraged to form more leaves. And so what I want you guys to do is, when your onion leaves get super long like this, do not worry about pruning them. Don't worry about it. So many of you say, well, if I prune, am I gonna create a spot for insect to come in? Doesn't happen. It's never happened, and it's highly recommended that you do this. Onion farmers will actually take a mower and mow the tops of their onions clean off. So you can do this in your garden, I promise. You can do this. Let me know in the comments box down below. I want to hear everyone say, I can do this, because so many of you don't think you can, and it's crazy that you don't think you can because it's very easy. What you're gonna do is you're gonna come in and about 7 inches off that onion leaf, because they'll get really long like this, about 7 inches off there, you're gonna take it, just pinch it off. That's it. Take it, pinch it off. Now you can take these inside and treat them like green onions, which is great, extra harvest. But you're gonna wanna come in here and do that. It's gonna do a couple things. One is it's actually gonna form more leaves. It's actually gonna send a signal that the plant needs to generate more leaves. These leaves here are actually going to, over time, kind of wilt and die. And that's fine because those rings are still intact on the onion. And so by pruning your onions, it's going to encourage that leaf growth, but it's also going to make sure that the weight is off the neck of the onion. Over time, the more leaves you have, the heavier that neck is. And when the neck gets too heavy and it falls over, that actually sends a signal to the onion that it's ready to be harvested. And it's going to stop growing. Onion necks, once they crimp, never uncrimp. And so it is very important we take the weight off of that onion neck by pruning. And a lot of gardeners just don't do it. And you can really increase the size of your onions by just pruning. It's that simple. Now, the second thing that most gardeners don't do, and you could get larger onions for doing it, is following up with fertilizer. Now, I talk about all the time how you don't want to over-fertilize in the garden because over-fertilizing ends up wasting money and could potentially end up harming your plants. But if done the right way, fertilizing your onions, a following up fertilizer after you plant and they start to grow, can actually encourage that growth, encourage that leaf development, and result in larger onions. So what are we going to do? We're going to fertilize with nitrogen. Now, we have here some blood meal. Blood meal is a 1200. That means it's 12% by weight of just nitrogen. If you had 100 pounds of this, you'd have 12 pounds of nitrogen. Or you can go with Revive RX. We actually carry it over at MIgardener.com. And this is a kelp extract. It's a liquid fertilizer, so you don't have to apply a granular. And because it's a kelp extract, if you're growing veganically, it's going to be great for you. Now, this is awesome because it's very highly plant available nutrients, right? So it's very fast acting. Blood meal is going to take a little bit while longer, but both are amazing options. Anything that has primarily a focus on nitrogen is going to greatly benefit your onion plants. So what's crazy is I want you to do this practice for me, and I want you to take everything you know about onions or that you think you know about onions and throw it out the window. What we're going to do is we're going to take onions and pretend that it's cabbage. If you take your onions and treat them more like cabbage, you'll actually find you get better results. I find so many people just keep treating their onions like root crops and not like leafy green crops. Believe it or not, the same nutrient requirements for growing giant onions are the same nutrient requirements for growing absolutely incredible, beautiful heads of cabbage. And that's because we're growing leaves, not roots. And if you get that through your mind and you can unlock that from that kind of get out of that box, right? Think outside the box and treat your onions like a leafy green crop, you're going to find that your onions are going to produce so many more leaves, and those leaves are going to produce larger onions. And it's that simple. It's that simple, you guys. And I want you all to try it because I'll tell you what, once I started treating my onions like I did cabbage or any other, spinach, lettuce, kale, any other leafy green crop that takes tons of nitrogen, I pump the nitrogen in the soil, give my plants as much as they can take, and the onions just got huge. All right, so we're just gonna follow up with a nice top dressing of this blood meal here, and later on in the season, about a month or two from now, we're gonna follow up with some Revive RX and give a nice liquid fertilizer as well. We're gonna follow up as many times as we feel is necessary up until the point when the sun starts to get lower in the sky. Now, the point when the sun gets lower in the sky does not matter how much you are fertilizing, because new leaves will not result in a larger onion. Why is that? Well, that's because onions are known as photosensitive, and that means their bulbing cycle will be based on the photosensitivity or the light cycle. The longer days results in growth. The shorter days starts to prep the plant for the following season because the plant realizes that the days are getting shorter. And when the days get shorter, it needs to store energy in a bulb, which that is what an onion is a bulb. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pump the growth. We're going to pump the growth because the day is getting longer. The days are getting longer. The sun is getting brighter. The plants are growing. They're creating energy and they're creating new leaves. Once the days start to get shorter after the summer solstice, you're going to have your onions basically stop producing as many leaves and start to focus more energy on onions. So we have all that time until the peak season, peak sun exposure, to get our onions as big as possible. And that's all we're doing. We're just pumping them full of nutrients, getting them as big as possible, pruning those older leaves, making sure they're producing new leaves, and we are making sure that our plants are as big and as healthy and as many leaves as possible, because that is the only thing that dictates how big an onion will be. So I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all learned something new. If you did, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to share this video with a friend that you think could benefit from growing larger onions. As always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow bigger. Take care. Bye. Hey, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, consider checking this one out. You'll probably enjoy it just as much. I want to thank you so much for your viewership, because without it, this channel would not be as amazing as it is. If you haven't subscribed yet, it's free. Consider doing that. We upload every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, rain or shine. And if you need any garden tools, supplies, or seeds, check out MIgardener.com. We got you covered. See you guys in the garden. Bye.